Every homeowner I've ever worked with has come to that first design meeting with a picture in their head, a version of their kitchen that's clean, calm, beautifully lit, and somehow never has washing up in the sink. I get it, I've got that picture in my head too, if I'm being honest. However, after almost 15 years of designing kitchens for real people with real lives, I can tell you that the perfect kitchen doesn't exist. We're often chasing a photo, not a kitchen. Most of us don't build our mental dream kitchen from scratch. We build it from other people's kitchens, Pinterest boards, Instagram reels, glossy magazine spreads, the kitchen a friend has just had done. The trouble is, a photograph is a kitchen with no one in it, no dinner half made, no school bags dumped on the island, no bin that needs taking out. It's styled for a single, silent moment, not for everyday real life. I always tell clients that the kitchens they're pinning are aspirational by design, and that's fine as a starting point for style and mood. But if you try to recreate that stillness in a kitchen that 4 people, a dog, and a weekly food shop actually pass through, you're setting yourself up to feel like you're failing at your own kitchen. And you're not failing. The photo was never real life to begin with. The old rules were built for a different kitchen. What a lot of the industry kitchen design people still measure projects against comes from somewhere surprisingly specific and, quite frankly, a little outdated, and that's research from the 1940s. The classic sink, cooker, fridge work triangle was formalized by the University of Illinois Small Homes Council in the late 1940s, building on earlier time and motion studies into household work. It was designed to make a single cook's life more efficient in a small enclosed kitchen. That's a very different brief to what most of us actually want from a kitchen nowadays. Today's kitchens are typically cooked in by more than one person, used for homework, coffee catch-ups, entertaining, and the odd episode of chaos when everyone wants to get into the fridge at the same time. A layout rule built for one person, one job in the 1940s was never going to comfortably describe all of that. Now, I'm not saying the work triangle is wrong. The underlying idea, keeping your key zones close enough to avoid pointless walking, still holds up. But it's a starting principle and general idea, not a finish line. Most of the kitchens I design now are planned in zones: prep, cooking, cleaning, storage, and often separate additional zones for coffee, breakfast, baking, anything that applies to you, really, rather than one single rigid triangle. Trends move faster than kitchens do. Here's a genuinely tricky problem with chasing perfect. Perfect is a moving target. What looked flawless 5 years ago can look dated today, and what looks flawless today could potentially look dated in another 5 years. The features people regret aren't usually the ones that were badly built. They're the ones that were on trend at the time and stopped working once the trend passed or once daily life tested them properly. Wall-to-wall open shelving that looked airy in photos but turned into a daily dusting job and a display case for mismatched mugs. Matte black taps and hardware that scratched and shows watermarks faster than expected and dated the moment the next finish came along. Or white marble worktops that etched and stained within months of the first glass of red wine or splash of lemon juice. None of those choices were mistakes exactly. They were honest trade-offs that the buyer didn't fully weigh up at the time. Style for low maintenance, drama for durability, looks for upkeep, which leads to my next point. Every choice you make is a trade-off. This is the part that some people find hardest to hear, but it's the most useful thing I can tell you. There's no such thing as a kitchen decision without a trade-off. Every yes to one thing is quietly a no to something else. You choose open shelving, you get a light, airy feel and easy access. The trade-off: everyday dust and visible clutter. Handleless cabinets can be sleek and minimal look, but then they're slightly less finger-friendly for young kids or arthritic hands. And marble countertops, beautiful natural surface with real depth, but they're more prone to scratches, stains, and etching. Now, none of these gains or losses are universally right or wrong. They're only right or wrong for you and your household. A couple who barely cook will feel differently about worktop space than a family who bakes every weekend. A downside for one client is a complete non-issue for another. In my own design projects, I try to get clients talking about their actual week rather than their ideal week. What are the main priorities for your kitchen? What is your current kitchen failing to provide? What does it do well at? What does a typical breakfast and dinner routine look like? What are the friction points? These types of questions, and critically the answers, are far more important than any aspirational pretty picture will ever be. One person's perfect is another person's big no. Another reason why perfect is set up to fail, what one household considers essential, another considers a deal breaker, and there's no version of perfect that satisfies both. I see this constantly, and it's rarely a case of one side being right. Induction or gas, for example. Some clients want induction and won't hear otherwise. They want that precise control. It's easy to wipe down, no naked flames near their kids. Others feel like they can't cook properly without gas and a visual feedback of a flame. Both are valid ways to cook. Neither side tends to be swayed by the other's reasoning. Range cooker or separate hob and ovens. A range cooker feels like the heart of the kitchen to some people, a real statement piece with genuine cooking capacity. Others find them impractical, everything's too low down, or simply overkill for a household that mostly does 2 pounds and a tray of chips. Even colour. I've had clients tell me a white kitchen feels clean and calm, and others tell me a white kitchen feels clinical and cold. Neither of them is wrong, it's genuinely just how that colour lands on you. And the classic hob on the island or nothing on the island at all. Plenty of people want the hob or cooktop on the island, so the cook faces into the room and stays part of the conversation. Just as many want a totally clear island for prep, seating, or serving, with cooking kept to a separate run of units. And both camps think the other's approach sounds stressful or somehow wrong, but none of these are right or wrong, but it does highlight that you can't please everyone 100% of the time, and if you're trying to please as many people's opinions now, as well as future opinions, such as resale or what might happen, you're going to create a kitchen full of compromises where nobody's happy. What the regret surveys actually tell us. If you want proof that perfect isn't really achievable, you don't need my opinion. You can look at what people say once they're actually living in their new kitchen, which surveyed more than 400 of its members about their kitchen renovation regrets, and the top complaints weren't really about style at all. Flooring that was hard to keep clean came out on top, with storage, worktop space, and cabinet finishes that show marks more than expected also high up on the list. A separate survey of 2,000 British homeowners by kitchen retailer Magnet found similar patterns. Not enough power sockets, not enough lighting, wishing they'd fitted a pantry. What strikes me about both surveys is how ordinary the regrets are. Nobody's writing in to say their kitchen wasn't dramatic enough. They're saying they'd wish they'd chosen easier to clean flooring or put a socket by the toaster. Perfect, in other words, was never really about the big showpiece decisions. It was about the small, unglamorous ones that only reveal themselves once you're living with the space. Your kitchen has to fit a life that keeps changing. Even if you could design a kitchen that was perfectly suited to your life today, your life won't stay still. Kids grow up and stop needing a low-level snack drawer. A couple who cook separately might start cooking together. Someone's mobility might change. Or you might start working from home and suddenly need a corner of the kitchen that doubles as a desk. A kitchen designed to be perfect for one specific moment in your life is almost by definition, going to feel less perfect a few years down the line. This is why I tend to push clients towards flexibility rather than a rigid, hyper-specific ideal. Deep drawers that can hold different things over time, a layout that doesn't box you into exactly one use for every surface, storage that can be reorganized without ripping anything out. It's a genuinely practical way to try to future-proof a space you might live with for 15 or 20 years. So what should you actually aim for? If perfect isn't the goal, what is? In my opinion, it's fit. A kitchen that fits how you actually cook, how your household actually moves, and what you can actually afford to maintain, both financially and in terms of daily effort. That means being honest about your habits rather than the habits you'd like to have. If you've never once decanted your cereal and pasta into matching glass jars, don't plan a run of open shelving around the idea that you suddenly will. It also means accepting that you'll get some things wrong. Every kitchen ever designed will have at least one thing you'd tweak with hindsight. That's not a failure of planning, it's just what happens when you're designing for a life you haven't fully lived yet. When good enough really is good enough. There's a balance to strike here, and I'm not suggesting you lower your standards or settle for a kitchen you don't love the look of. Aesthetics do matter. You'll spend hours a day in this room, and it should lift your mood. What I'm pushing back on is the idea that there's one flawless configuration out there waiting to be found, and that if your kitchen isn't it, you somehow got it wrong. That mindset makes the whole process more stressful than it needs to be, and it can lead to decision paralysis or blowing your budget, chasing a finish that won't actually change how happy you are in the space. So, in my opinion, the perfect kitchen doesn't exist, but a kitchen that's genuinely right for you does. It just requires a slightly different way of thinking about the whole process. Less, does this look flawless? More, does this work for the way I actually live and cook in reality? Every good kitchen I've ever worked on has trade-offs somewhere in it. What separates the ones people love from the ones people regret is an absence of compromise. It's whether those compromises were made on purpose, with a clear understanding of what was being gained and given up. I hope you enjoyed this one. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.